All right, hey there everyone. This video lesson here is number 3 video in the bootcamp tutorial section. And while I really don't want to make these, 1 or 2 or 3 hour long videos, man, there's just so much to talk about. And that's why I think it's incredibly important you spend a predetermined amount of time on each one of these topics, and you have to just practice them. You have to read about them. You have to ask me questions about them. You have to discuss them in the forums, because that's how you'll get them. And while you certainly may find, as I talked about in the intro video to this boot camp, you may find that you gravitate, you will find that you gravitate towards one or the other. For me personally, I don't like trading calendars and diagonals, but I know how to trade them, and I know how they operate, and I know when I need to trade them to maybe protect or preserve a larger or a different position. And so the only way you're going to know how they function and operate is by trading them. And so you will discover that you'll favor one over the other, and then it becomes that point of transitioning into, all right, now let's capitalize on that one. Let's forget about all the rest of them. If you're not going to trade them and you're not going to use them for monthly income or to grow an account, well, then let's focus on the one thing that you really enjoy and that you really successfully can trade, and let's go ahead and step on that gas pedal. But to get to that point, you have to get through all these others. So they're not going to be 4 or 5 minute video lessons, I'm sorry, but I think they'll provide a great amount of value and content. So this one, I want to talk about calls and puts skew, what that word means, and what you should be thinking about when you hear that word, as well as using synthetic stock, all right? Synthetic stock using options, all right? And then also talking about some Greeks. I will spend a whole entire section talking just about Greeks, and I will unpack each one of them individually, but for now, I think this is a great place to give you an introduction to them so you can know how they operate, what they mean, as well as spend some time reading up about them on your own. So that's where we're headed on this one. I expect it'll probably be about the same, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, half an hour or so, just talking about the put skew, the call skew, how they operate differently, how you use synthetic stock, and then the Greeks. So we're just going to go back to our Thinkorswim platform here, paper money account, and we'll just dive right on in, okay? Now, I'm always going to be showing this Analyze tab. Hold on, so sorry. Turn that down. The Analyze tab here shows you're adding the simulated trades. It shows the risk profile. We're not going to spend any time talking about this right now. I'll briefly talk about it later, but if you want to read about it and learn about it now, absolutely start watching some of those videos on the Thinkorswim site. But then also the Think Back, it's a very rudimentary feature that is attempting to let you back trade like Option View. It is nowhere near the level that Option View is, so I don't even mess around with it. Because I just don't want to frustrate myself. But you're looking at this option chain right here. Let's go back to the Russell. That's one of my favorite instruments to trade, as well as the SPX and a handful of individual equities. Now, what you'll notice is from the last video, this simulated trade still stuck around. If you don't delete it, either by clicking this little X here or by pulling this down and deleting the simulated trades, well, it's not going to go away, all right? So I always try and keep them clean, as smooth looking as possible, so that when I'm modeling potential new trades, I don't get a bunch of junk jumbled up in there. Again, come right here. Sorry, this one, delete simulated trades, reset parameters and dates. That's kind of my habit. That's my routine and what I do all the time. This one up here above it, the price slices, this is a pretty good one, as it will let you set slices based upon different parameters or assumptions. So let me just show you here. If I wanted to go back to modeling that directional call that we did last time, now all of a sudden I've got a risk profile. Well, let's say I want to set a trigger or an alert under the price slices section. I want to set it to, you know, plus or minus 10% plus base. Well, now it tells me where the market is at and tells me what a 10% move up or down is based upon the current levels of volatility. All right. Then I can also look at, you know, 8 rows, 2% step up and down. I mean, look at that. Then you can kind of monitor incrementally when the market, I mean, you can play around with this and, you know, 2 standard deviations, etc. I end up keeping this on some of the other trades I do, break even, because I want to know where my threshold is at expiration. So you'll see I need to get right here, above here, to make money by expiration. But then I also want to, where's the add slice here? Add a slice. I want to add another slice. I always have 3. And so this particular one will be the unlocked where the market's actually trading at, 0. This is where the market's trading at. And then I will padlock these 2 based upon what I want. Up or down. I always have every single trade plan, every single position. I know what my line in the sand is on the upside and the downside where I'm willing to do something. All right. So let's just talk about this skew. When you're looking at this right here, I'm going to open this up a little bit more here. When you are talking about skew, what in the world does that mean? And all that means is skew has to do with the difference between weeks, between calls and puts. You've got call skew, you've got put skew, and it's just that difference and the changes in between, especially volatility. So if you look right over here, this is the default platform. You cannot change this. Well, let me just back up. Maybe you can change this. I don't think you can, but this gives you what the average implied volatility is right here. If I bring this a little bit closer, just so I can show you which weeks we're discussing and dealing with here. So you'll see the difference between 1 week and the next. 7 days in calendar time, you've got a skew from 15.09 to 14.44. All right. So that right there, that's a positive, that's a negative skew from the front month, from the front week cycle to the back week cycle. All right. Well, now look at what happens if I skip a week and I go from options that expire in 2 days until options that expire in 16 days. Well, now what do I have here? I've got a skew from 15 to 16. I've got a 1 point or 1% skew, all right, that takes me from a lower amount to a higher amount. All right, so now that skew is something you need to be aware of. When you start getting skews that are way out of line, the farther, what I want you to notice is the farther out in time you go, look at how much higher the volatility goes. I really kind of wasn't thinking about talking about volatility, but I might as well. I'm going to do a whole section on volatility, so I'll just briefly talk about it now. But the farther out in time, the higher this volatility, this implied volatility will become. And that just means that there's more, there's more time for uncertainty to enter the market, your position, your life. I mean, it's this uncertainty. Obviously, we have a pretty good idea that something that's going to happen in the next 2 days is less influential on a position or on the market than something that might happen 1,017 days from now, 3 years from now. So if I want to buy an option 3 years out into the future, all right, this would be awesome illustration. If I want to buy an option 3 years into the future at the 1200 strike price, it's going to cost me $184.90. And there are only 96 contracts of open interest. None of them have traded today. That trade right there is going to cost me $18,490. All right? Compared to what if I went in one that expires in 16 days at the 1200 strike price, right? It's going to cost me $40 or $4,000. That difference between this volatility between one that expires in a couple of weeks versus one that expires in a couple or 3 years, that is skew. That's just the difference, okay? So the skew, when I refer to that term, because I will refer to it a fair amount in the future, that skew is just the difference between the option prices, the option volatilities. Just think of skew as this, the difference. Now, where this also comes into play is you've got skew between puts and calls. Again, I didn't just willy-nilly throw this together, all right? There's a big reason why I want you to spend a whole month thinking and reading and understanding and practicing and talking about things like call and put skew, synthetic stock, Greeks. I mean, volatility is going to come into play all across these lessons, but it's really important, and for those of you that have maybe never been exposed to this, it's going to be a little bit challenging, but it absolutely will begin to make sense the more you play around and practice with it. But let's just look at the skew here, right? Now, we have got implied volatility. This is the left side is just all call side. We go from 12.95. The volatility elevates to about 15 point, what is that, 659, 63, 42, and that whole level right in here. And then you come at the money, which is where the market's trading at right now. And as you start going out of the money, you'll see the volatility levels change. If they fluctuate till you get way far out of the money, it begins to elevate again. The put side, exactly the same way. It's higher in the money. It kind of shrinks down to at the money, and then it begins to elevate again as you go out of the money. I mean, you go out of the money to some of these puts, and look at what happens. I mean, applied volatility is 80, 90, 100, 130%, but there's no volume out here. There's no open interest traded. So this skew, this difference between calls and puts, cross week, cross month, in the money, out of the money, that's all relevant to what I'm trying to teach you and what I'm trying to show you. The option volatility right here, you'll see at the money on the put side is 15.47 and 13.79. All right. And so this difference, again, right at the money is skew. 13.82 minus 15.45 is the difference. Now, I go out of the money on the puts. I really hope that this is, kind of sinking in. It makes perfect sense of my brain, and I'm really trying to emphasize how important it is to get. But again, you know, watch this video a couple of times, read about this, send me an email, anything you guys want, man. I'm here to help you. But out of the money put implied volatility, let's just say this. Let's go to a uniform number, so we're comparing apples to apples. A delta of minus 10 has a implied volatility on the put side of 19.73. A delta of plus 10, well, we'll say plus 7. All right, so let's go to 7, or close enough to 7. We'll say 8. A delta of 8 on the put side has an implied volatility of 20.52 compared to 11.04. What kind of a skew is that? Holy hell, Batman. Pardon my French. Look at the difference between going out of the money on the puts and out of the money on the calls. That skew you have got to be aware of. Let me just make it very, very important. Look, 11 and, oh, yeah, see, I'm sorry. I'm still learning these drawing tools. 11 and 20. That's a 50% increase or decrease, or 100% increase. I mean, that's huge. You have got to be aware of that. So it's important. It's incredibly important when we start getting into trading condors, trading butterflies, what the relationship a butterfly has with a condor, as well as ratio and back spreads. It's mandatory you guys know what skew is and how that influences a trade. Okay, so that is what skew is. I'll recap real fast here. It is the difference across weeks or months, you know, from this month to this month. You'll see a skew is from 16 to 17, or 17 to 18, or 18 to 20. So the skew is across there. The skew is also across the strike prices, right? You've got skew that's lower. You've got skew that begins to elevate as it goes out of the money. Same on the put side. And then you've got skew comparing out of the money to out of the money, or in the money to in the money, as well as right at the money. So that is skew. I won't keep talking about that. Synthetic stock, I would like to really show you this one, because again, let's use the reason why I go to some of these underlyings is because you cannot trade the Russell. You cannot trade it. You see, I can't buy or sell actual shares of the Russell. And that's because that is a cumulative basket of 2,000 individual equities. I can trade options on the Russell. I can't specifically trade the Russell. The SPX, I can. The SPX, I can trade options on. But if I go to something like Apple, or even Priceline's a better example because it's so expensive. If I wanted to, let's say I wanted to buy 100 shares of Priceline, what is that going to cost me, right? That's going to cost me $124,000, right? It's going to cost me, that's 1241.64. So, you know, times 100, 1241.64 times 100 is $124,164. I don't have that big of an account. I mean, flat out, I don't. I could never trade Priceline long or short if I wanted to. But what I can do is I can go in here and I can say, you know what? Let me look at Priceline. Let me look at this chart. I've got a gap. Probably I expect maybe that was earnings. I don't know when earnings were reported. I don't watch earnings. Don't care about earnings. But let's just say that I really thought that this gap was going to fill and Priceline was going to settle back down and fill. So I'm short Priceline. I want a short Priceline in a mean kind of way. But I do not have $124,000 to plunk on the table. How can I get short? Well, I'll tell you how you can get short. You develop a time horizon. Do you think that's going to move in the next 17 days? Do you think that's going to move in the next 45 days, 73 days, etc.? The farther out in time you go, the more expensive these options will become. But let's just say, because you watched video lesson number 2 about trading directional calls and puts, you know you're going to go and you're going to buy a put option right at the money. It's going to expire in a couple of weeks, and that's going to pay me, it's going to cost me $2,000. Well, now, right off the bat, I have a $2,000 trade that's going to benefit from a directional move in Priceline. The problem with that is, you see how this white line right here is curved, doesn't follow this, you know, this angle where there is no inflection point at all on that. Well, why do you think that is? That, my friend, is volatility. That is uncertainty. That is intrinsic and extrinsic value that's built into these options. You have to understand that. You have to know what that is. So if I want to get short, but I don't want to be exposed to that kind of change in volatility, well, buying or selling synthetic stock, all that means is instead of paying $2,000, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go deep, deep in the money where there's very little influence from volatility, and let's say I'm going to buy this one. All right. Well, now it's going to cost me 16 grand. You know, I definitely have that. I don't have 124 grand. I do have 16 grand. Well, now look at what happens. Which looks more like this? All right. A straight line. Which looks more like that? This or this? I mean, I'm being kind of facetious right now. Please, I'm kind of a little tad sarcastic at times. I'm working on that and trying to get better. But you know, I think you get the illustration. I can trade a $16,000 position that will model this a lot better than this. I still get benefit if the stock moves in my favor for a cheaper cost, but I have no exposure to changes in volatility. And what happens is now this is a synthetic position. It replicates buying or selling the actual shares in an option trade. Now, I'll talk real quick about the Greeks. Look at this. Vega is influence, is volatility influence. If a Vega is 0, that means this is not influenced at all by changes in volatility. Theta is time decay. Theta is intrinsic and extrinsic value, so that is not influenced at all by theta because this never expires. If I own it till I sell it. If I sell it, I sold it till I own it, right? Gamma is a derivative of delta, which when you are long or short actual shares, you have no gamma influence. So the only thing I'm worrying about right now is delta. Delta is pure price movement. For every $1 that price line moves down, I will make $100 of profit. So delta, just think of delta as price movement. Now, doesn't that look very similar to a deep in the money put has a delta of minus 100. It has no gamma, no theta, no vega. I mean, look at what that has. So, you know what? Hold on a second. Something's not right. Please pause and briefly enjoy this commercial break. Oops, no, I don't want to do that. I want to sell it. Something did not look right. Let's go delete, reset. I'm going to go deep in the money for price line. Well, there we go. That's right. Okay. Maybe it's when you can't do the shares and the underlying. Oh gosh, dang it. All right. Sorry guys, listen. Right here, this right here, single symbol. You have to check both if you want to see two different positions or two different underlyings. That's exactly why. So now you'll see it doesn't change that at all. I am so sorry. Now look, so this is, let's just go back here. I've sold 100 shares of Priceline. Delta is minus 100, gamma 0, theta 0, vega 0. No influence from Greeks whatsoever. It's all price movement. I go a deep in the money put, all right? This right here is a 10% move down, so let's make all these 0. Okay, I have minus 93, which is very close to minus 100. I have a very little bit of gamma. I'm losing $25 every day because I've bought an option, and I have a little bit of Vega sensitivity. But compare that to going right at the money, and if I buy something right at the money, look at how much different that looks. Delta's minus 48, so that's half of minus 100. I have a lot more gamma, which accelerates delta. I'm losing $60 a day as opposed to just losing 20. And I have a lot more Vega influence. I have $110 that are influenced by a 1 point increase or decrease in volatility. So this is the actual shorting the stock. This is a synthetic version of that. It's $16,000 or $15,000 versus $124,000. So please file that in your memory bank, practice that, explore that, learn how that may become applicable to your situation, and spend some time learning about that. So I kind of talked about the Greeks as well with the synthetic stock. I will spend a lot more time talking about Greeks and especially talking about volatility. This Vega number, volatility, I've titled that folder, that my section there, Volatility, the Silent Killer, because you can have the perfectest, best trade on the planet, and if you're not aware of how volatility will influence it, you'll take a 90-mile-an-hour curveball to the head one day when you think you've got a great trade that you're just waiting to close profitably, and then all of a sudden it zings you for a maximum loss. So just understand volatility is very, very, very important. I will spend time talking about that. And again, it will be an ongoing conversation, maybe not every single week, but at times we'll absolutely be talking about it on an ongoing basis. Okay? Thank you again so much. I'm going to say it over and over again. I'm here for you guys. I want to help you guys. I understand exactly, and I remember vividly how it feels in the beginning to be so overwhelmed. And I'm here to help you, guys and gals, everybody. I'm here to help this community and just make this the best place it can be. One-stop shop, if you will, where traders all around the world can come and learn all different styles and all different methodologies. And if one area doesn't fit your style and personality, well, then there will be something else that's available to you to check out. And so that's my hope here. All right, thank you much, and look for the next one in sequence. All right, bye.